All right, thank you. I wish that no heckling rule was available when I played baseball. So before I get started here, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that we lost a really good person yesterday in Representative Boswell. So, yeah. So my name is J.D. Scholten. I'm up in Sioux City, and I'm the Democratic nominee in Iowa's 4th District. Thank you. And I like to start things off usually by telling folks the average person in Congress is 58 years old with a net worth of $1 million. I'm different. I'm 20 years younger, and I'm about $1 million short of that average. So it's great being down here at the fair. I was here a little bit yesterday, and then I had some meetings in Des Moines. And as I was driving around, I got to realize I really don't know Des Moines. I don't know Cedar Rapids. I don't know Dubuque. I don't know Iowa City. The Iowa that I know is Larchwood, because that's where my dad's from. And in Lake Mills, because my mom grew up on a farm just outside of there, and that's where she graduated. And I know Mason City, because that's where my parents met as high school teachers. And I know Ames, because I was born there, 10 pounds, 2 ounces. My mom reminds me every birthday. And I know Nevada, because that's where I lived the first 4 years of my life. And then we moved to Sioux City, and I know Sioux City. That's where I learned to throw the ball. That's where I graduated high school. I went to college. I played professional baseball, and now I currently live there, and I bought my childhood home for my parents. So I know the 4th District, and that's one of the part of the reason why I'm running. Now, I have a lot of things I like to talk about. I like to talk about fighting for a healthcare system that works for all of us. I like to talk about fighting for an economy that works for all of us, and fighting for a government that works for all of us. But today is different. As I was laying in bed last night, I started getting fired up a little bit. I'm a pretty competitive guy. And I started thinking about what's happening in the 4th District with our agriculture. And so today I would like to talk about consolidation, the renewable fuel standard, and these tariffs. So to give you a little bit of background, before I go into this agriculture, is my inspiration in my life and for this campaign is my grandma. And to tell you a little bit about her, after my first year of professional baseball, the family asked, hey, she's having a surgery. Could you move in with her and help take care of her? And at that time, I had a 5 a.m. work shift. And ahead of my 5 a.m. work shifts, she would have breakfast on the table at 4:30 in the morning. That's the type of woman my Grandma Fern was. And so I'm a first-time candidate, and like many first-time candidates, I was influenced by what happened in November of 2016. But for me, it just wasn't the election. It was also the 8 days that I got to spend for Thanksgiving with my grandma. And on the first day, Grandma said, JD, you should work at this retirement home and take care of me. I said, Grandma, that's a great idea. I don't think they're gonna hire me. And she said, you're probably right. And on the next day, she said something different, and the next day, something different, and by day 6, I was feeling pretty inadequate. But on the last day, she had said something that really stuck with me. She said, JD, you need to take care of the farm. And so a lot of what I'm doing here is that promise of taking care of our farm. And so the first thing, and also, my great-great-grandparents turned the field in Worth County. And so it's in my blood. I'm a 5th-generation Iowan, first to be raised in town. Our family farm, we rent out to a family friend. And so this is something pretty passionate to me. On my dad's side, my grandpa sold seed and feed. On my mom's side, my grandpa was a farmer. So I like to say one of them gave away the hats, one of them took the hats and wore the hats. And so when I talk about consolidation, this is something that's pretty passionate about, that I'm passionate about. And what we've seen, whether it's seed markets, whether it's grain processing, or whether it's meat packing, we've seen consolidation hurt farmers on both ends, the input and the output. And just yesterday, the Monsanto-Bayer merger was integrated. And what that means are two things and specifically in our district, is we're probably gonna lose a few jobs, and farmers, anytime you lose market choice, the price on farmers goes up, and the pressure on farmers goes up. So the issue with this is that Democrats and Republicans on both sides have allowed this to happen for years. We need to start controlling that and jump ahead of the curve on this. So, consolidation. The second thing I want to talk about is the renewable fuel standard. Now, in the renewable fuel standard, it talks that 15 billion bushels of corn go into the fuel system in America. 15 billion bushels. But right now, with what's happening in the EPA, they're abusing the small refinery waiver. And so now some of the bigger refineries are using this waiver, and now we have a surplus of 9 million bushels of corn. And so what that does is drive down our costs for the corn. And so our American government is pushing down on our farmers. Who's fighting for the farmers? Who's looking out for us? And the third thing I want to talk about are these tariffs. So first, with the tariffs, I look at New York City and that real estate, they're not getting affected. I look down in Texas, the oil industry, they're not getting affected by it. I look at Silicon Valley, they're not getting hurt. The 4th District is bearing the brunt of these tariffs, and that's got to end. You look at the $12 billion bailout. We want trade, not aid. But the way I look at it is it's like you're getting punched in the face, and that same guy that punches you in the face gives you an ice cube to cool that down. And what are we doing to stop this? Who's fighting for the farmers? And so that brings me to my next thing, Representative Steve King. He has no heckling on either side. So what is he doing? And so you look at, he has a chance. He's been in there for 16 years. 16 years, you have the potential to have leadership, and he's not doing that. So why isn't he in a leadership role? He could even be chairman of the Egg Committee, but he's not. And why is he not? Well, maybe partly because he's missed 39% of the Egg Committee meetings in the last decade. Or maybe it's because he's missed 82% of the small business meetings in the last decade. And so he's abdicated his leadership for his own political agenda and his ideology. Who's he fighting for? And so, one second. It's a little warm today. And so one thing I like to talk about is my baseball career, and honestly, I wasn't that good. But I had to outwork, I had to out-hustle everybody I had in order to just even maintain. And that's the same commitment I have to this. And so you look at when we had other players who I like to call fake hustle. And fake hustle is when you hustle when the camera's on and you hustle when the coaches are around. Steve King is a fake hustle politician. Unfortunately, he's not down here. He's not doing town halls in my district. We can't get a hold of him to do a debate. What's he doing? A representative needs to represent. They need to look voters straight in the eye. And that's what I feel. And so I made a pledge to do 39, thank you. I made a pledge to do 39 town halls, one in every county in my first term while I'm in office. Thank you. And we also did a pledge to take no corporate PAC money. And I've been able to outraise him on a 2-to-1 scale in the last 9 months. And we've outraised him this entire election cycle. And our average donation is $20, just a little bit over $20. And I'm pretty darn proud of that because we're a people-powered movement. And enough people are saying enough. And I've met with an agriculture group recently. I won't mention their name, but they said they're done with King. And they wanted to talk about an endorsement with us. And they mentioned, well, with an endorsement, you get $5,000 from our PAC. And I said, hey, I really appreciate it, sir, but we made this pledge, and I could not accept that. And the guy was a little stunned. You could see the wheels working. And he goes, JD, that's impressive. We've never had a politician turn down money before. And so, but that's what we're doing. And on the other side of the hustle part, I'm out there. I put 35,000 miles in my personal vehicle. Nobody noticed me when I came in and out of town. So I bought a used Winnebago RV, a Winnebago Brave 26A. I'm very proud of. And we put our logo on the side, and I've been pretty much living out of that nonstop. And I spend more nights on that thing than I do in my personal bed, and I'm okay with that. And I just want to say, this district deserves somebody fighting for them. And that's at the heart and at the essential, and it's with my promise to my grandma. That's what's driving me with this. And so with all this, I like to say that my campaign isn't just happy to put on a uniform. We came to play, we came to compete, we came to win. And I just want to say thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to open it up for questions. My name's J.D. Scholten. If you live in the 4th District, I ask for your vote come November. If you don't live in the district, I ask that you move to the district, register to vote, and vote for me come November. Thank you very much, and I'm Stand Tall for All. Thank you. The Q&A, do I just ask? Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Which help make sure that families of lower incomes get the quality child care they deserve. However, this historic increase is still not enough to help many Iowan families. If you're elected, how would you help?
Right. So, I mean, that goes along with the question was about block grants for early child development, right? Early childhood education, absolutely. Well, here's one thing in Iowa is if you look at our state quarter, it's foundation in education. And as much as I come from a long line of farmers, I come from a long line of educators too. So I'm extremely passionate about investing in our children, in working with them, especially early development. The other side of this, and I'm going to go off on a different tangent for a second, I just had my high school 20th year reunion. And as much as we produce hogs, and as much as we produce soybeans and corn and wind energy, the best thing we produce are our people. And the thing, when I was going around talking to my classmates at my high school reunion, it was amazing. Like, people are doing great things, whether they went straight into the workforce or whether they went to college and then into the workforce. And the thing that really drives me nuts is, at best, they were doing it down here in Des Moines. They were doing it in Omaha, Chicago, Minneapolis, New York, everywhere. And we don't have an economy that can, the 4th District doesn't, that can absorb our kids and my classmates. And that's one thing I'm absolutely passionate for. But when we have them, I want to make sure that my classmates and our children can raise their children the way I was raised. And it starts with early childhood development. Anybody else? The SNAP benefits? Well, that's one of the frustrating things with the farm bills. All of a sudden, a nonpartisan bill becomes very partisan. The good news, though, is that Steve King isn't on the Farm Bill Conference Committee, so he doesn't really have a say. What's most likely going to happen, and they're arguing now, and they're working it out, is that it's going to be mostly what the Senate bill ended up being like. And so we absolutely need to continue with the SNAP benefits the way they are. And what? And not the box. Not the what? Oh, not the boxes. Right. Yeah. Healthcare. All right. So this is my number one issue, and it's the number one thing I usually talk about. There's two things I desperately need, and before I get to them, I'll mention I'm for an immediate public option so we can stabilize the markets. I'm for Medicare buy-in at 55 plus to allow folks who want to retire to do so. I'm for getting a handle on prescription drug prices. Those are my immediate things. My long-term vision is a Medicare for all or something along those lines. And so But the two things that I absolutely need in all this, I'm flexible with. We got to get people covered, and the two things I really, really need is when I stop and fill up my Winnebago with gas, almost every time I see a donation box for someone who just got sick or just got in an accident. We live in the wealthiest country in the world. That should not be a way that we have our healthcare system funded. And it just came out that 1 in 3 GoFundMe sites are for healthcare related issues. And then you go into the bankruptcy side of it, 60% of bankruptcies are medical related. And 72% of the people who are that go into bankruptcy because of medical issues had health insurance. So the system's broke. And then so the second part of it is we absolutely need to address mental health. And with mental health, two things with that. Farmer suicides are on the rise. Absolutely unacceptable. 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Absolutely unacceptable. So those are things that I'm absolutely passionate about. So, yes? Well, right. So the question was, what are we going to do to combat the rhetoric of the administration, especially in the district? Well, it's a good question. It's interesting to go out there, and I'll say that I'm pretty proud of the fact that my campaign's not afraid to go into any town and talk shop. And when you talk to somebody who, well, my neighbor, for example, he has a truck the size of Texas. He caucused for Trump, and he has 5 AR-15s. Needless to say, we don't always see eye to eye on some issues. But the one thing we can always agree upon is how frustrated we are with DC and how that doesn't represent who we are. And he's on board. And I mean, we go down some rabbit holes, and I have to work my way to dig out of there. But the one thing we can always agree on is how there's too much special interest and too much self-interest in DC. And that's one thing I'm trying to focus on getting rid of.